Hello. So it says we are live today, and I am glad to see so many people joining us here on the last Tuesday of January. I don't know about you guys, but time is flying. While we wait, I'm going to give everyone about 1 or 2 more minutes to join. We'd love to hear where everyone is joining from us today. I'm sitting in Copenhagen, where we've been lucky to get a little bit of sun today, but we have colleagues joining us from Stockholm and around Sweden. So put it in the chat. Let's see where you're coming from. Oh, I think we have more sunny places. Oh, we got a Belfast and a Helsinki. Quite the span, especially the topic being CSRD. We are getting quite a global turnout today. Gloomy Frankfurt, okay. I guess it's appropriate for a Tuesday in January. Well, hopefully we will shed some light on CSRD, but we will get started here today. We are on a little bit of a tight schedule. So welcome everyone to our webinar on mastering CSRD step by step. It's going to be your 2025 action plan. I'm excited to share some insights and practical guidelines to help you navigate your CSRD compliance journey for the next year. Now, before we begin, let me go through some quick housekeeping items. So today's session will be, we have it slated at about 45 minutes with time built in for a Q&A at the end based on how we are able to time keep today. We are recording this webinar. So for those who can't make it, or if you see something super interesting you want to reference back to, we will be sending it out post the webinar. Now, if you have any questions, we've got a couple experts on the panel today with my colleagues. So please use the Q&A function. It's down next to the chat. And that way we'll be able to, if we don't get to your questions today, follow up with you individually after the fact. So use that instead of the main chat. That's going to be your best way to make sure that you get prioritized in the Q&A. And we value your feedback. We want to give you guys the best assets information. So if you could take a couple seconds after the webinar, we send out a post-webinar survey that makes sure that we can get you guys the best information of what you're actually interested in hearing going forward. So like I said, packed agenda today. What we have on that agenda, it is 3 main sections. First of all, we'll start with an overview of CSRD and what to expect in 2025. Then we're going to move into a clear action plan to transform complexity into a manageable process. And then my colleagues, you got a special treat today. We have a product manager here to talk to you about Normative's approach to CSRD, where we'll then wrap up with an extensive Q&A. But let me give a quick introduction to myself. My name is Sarah Bose-Peterson. I'm a product manager here at Normative. So I take what we're doing here in this technical carbon accounting space and make sure that I'm connecting it to the value that you guys use for your businesses on the everyday. And I'll hand it over to Sapanta.
Hi everyone, my name is Sapanta Sharafuddin and I'm a CSRD consultant here at Normative, really helping our clients throughout their CSRD journey.
My name is Vijay Quarters. I am a product manager here at Normative who, along with Sapanta and the rest of our team, have built the CSRD module from the ground up.
So those are the experts that you're going to get to ask your questions after our presentation today. So remember, put those questions in the Q&A chat. But we'll say goodbye to them for now, and we'll dig into our first section. But before we get in, let me, and specifically into CSRD, let me briefly introduce Normative. So our vision is ambitious. However, it is but very clear. It's to make known and reduce the sustainability impact of all economic activities on the planet. So this isn't just about software or services. It's about driving real change in how businesses understand and manage their environmental impact. Now, where did our journey begin? It started in Stockholm in 2014, where sustainability isn't a buzzword, but kind of a way of how we do everything. Since then, we've grown into a global organization, collaborating with innovative companies worldwide. And we founded and participated in international climate groups, which brings scientific rigor in everything we do, from carbon accounting to sustainability reporting like CSRD. So with participation in standard setting bodies like the GHG Protocol for Scope 3 Technical Advisory Group and the ISO Net Zero Standard Working Group, as well as partnerships with Oxford Net Zero and CDP and many more, like I said, scientific integrity is at the core of everything we do at Normative, including how we've decided to approach CSRD and a solution for businesses looking to comply with CSRD. So let's start off with a poll. So Ida, my colleague, will put a poll up, and the question will be, where is your organization in its CSRD reporting journey for 2025? So that is the theme of today's webinar. So you're just getting started? Are you currently in the planning phase? Maybe you've already seen what an obstacle data collection is and you're in the middle of that. Maybe the implementation's underway, or if you're way ahead of the game, I'll be surprised on this one, it is final preps or not applicable. It's not something you're looking at 2025, but possibly here in the future. So I'll take a second so everyone gets a chance to vote. Let's see some results. Oh, we've got a good amount of votes. We're already at 92 votes, with the majority are saying just getting started. They're still evaluating if or when CSRD applies to us. And this is going to be something we touch on, which is a knowledge gap around CSRD. Not applicable, they're not reporting for the organization for 2025. Well, then it's good you're here a little bit early, or you're in the planning phase. So that's the majority of where people are sitting. Okay, good to know before we get into this. Okay, so CSRD in 2025 and getting ready. So here at Normative, we had a really cool report. It's called the Carbon Accountability Report, where we do firsthand research. And I want to start with a really important insight. 86% of sustainability decision makers believe that compliance with CSRD is a competitive advantage. And this is just people that were polled that will have to comply with CSRD. So that's an extremely high number that we want to look into. So we looked into this with detail. The study uncovered a number of benefits that sustainability decision makers believe come as a result of being in compliance with CSRD. And the biggest benefits that they reported were enhanced investor confidence, product innovation, access to new markets, and reduced operational costs being the prominent benefits. So there's a lot to do besides just this check mark of CSRD that people are going to have to report on anyways. So the next statistics that we found, though, is that there's a skills gap. So despite the increasing prioritization of carbon accounting and compliance with CSRD, there are core gaps in terms of the skills that businesses need to meet the threshold and this obstacle of reporting that they're faced with. And overall, 44% of sustainability decision makers surveyed that with the state that their business is in currently, with meeting regulatory and compliance requirements, they found it really challenging. So this was up from the year before, where it was 48% of respondents felt the same. So the timeline of CSRD is creeping up, but people still feel like there is a knowledge skill gap today, and that is real. And that's something we're trying to address here with our webinar and at Normative. So at Normative, we bridge this expertise gap by combining two crucial elements: our scientific carbon accounting engine and expert climate strategists. This means you get both the technical accuracy needed for compliance and the strategic guidance to make this more manageable. So we help you understand CSRD requirements and navigate the steps in order. We help you populate complex carbon calculations to ensure coverage across all disclosures. Carbon calculations are a big part of the E in the ESRS standards, so you need to be able to know that you can trust them, and then submitting with confidence backed by auditable data and verifiable calculations. Now, if you want to hear more about this knowledge gap and bridging the gap, I know a lot of you said we're still in the planning phase. We have a really cool asset, which is the Decoding CSRD Guide. So take a look and download that today, and it will definitely be really helpful in this first part of the phase of CSRD to know what it even is that you're getting started with. Now, 2025 is already here. We're already 4 weeks in practically. So let's look more at the timelines. Looking at the CSRD timeline, we are at a critical moment. The largest companies will begin reporting on their 2024 financial year here in 2025. This will be followed by large companies in 2026 and SMEs in 2027. But this timeline may look overwhelming, but here's the key message. Regardless of when you need to report and what your reporting deadline is, the time to prepare is now. So I would be remiss if we did not also take into account that there is CSRD in the headlines. So we don't want to ignore that here at Normative. We know that CSRD regulation is very dynamic still. In recent headlines, you may have seen that some EU member states have requested flexibility in implementation. For example, just this week, France asked to delay CSRD. And back in December, Germany also called for a 2-year delay to the implementation of the reporting rules, as well as asking for a significant reduction in the content of CSRD. So while the headlines can feel a little overwhelming or spark some unease, Just know that the current situation is that several EU member states have requested flexibility in the timelines. Some of the key concerns they have is including that companies need more time to prepare. Like we said, this is a massive exercise in data collection. Where does this data sit? What is the data I need? And some countries have already announced delays. For example, Sweden postponing by 2 years. So what does this mean? This means that the original CSRD currently today, the framework and requirements remain unchanged. Some of it is still a little bit to be decided, but no major changes. So we know what we need to tackle on the big scale, and implementation timelines may vary by company, or may vary country by country. So company by company should continue preparation while maintaining local or monitoring local requirements. So here at Normative, our professional recommendation is that you start preparation now to ensure readiness regardless of timeline changes. You don't want to be caught on your back foot. You don't have to get ready if you stay ready. So use any potential delays as an opportunity to strengthen your data collection, your processes. And this is great because if your company hasn't looked at their carbon inventory and their carbon calculations yet, this is maybe going to buy you a little bit more time to get those in line, because that in itself is a huge data collection exercise. And stay informed about specific requirements in your jurisdiction. So whether you work with a partner or you're doing something in-house, set a Google alert or anything that would make sure that you were knowing if there was any changes for your specific region and CSRD reporting timelines. So where does that put us? So even past the headlines, we can sum up that you're going to need some sort of solution at one point. So let's walk through the different approaches to solutions that businesses currently today are taking to CSRD compliance. We're going to examine 5 main options, each with their own advantages and challenges. And first up, there is this in-house approach that I mentioned before. Now, it's cost effective and helps build internal capacity, but I want you to know that it's incredibly resource intensive and may leave you lacking specialized expertise in crucial areas. Like I said, there's a lot of changes happening in this space, and to have one expert that could cover all of it is kind of a reach, and you definitely would be needing to find this person, implement them to your organization, and build on the strengths there. But it is doable. So in-house experts can be CSRD specific. Well, what we usually see is a sustainability manager that then uses some of these other solutions to help pad their resources and bandwidth. Next up is ESG platforms. Now, these are often marketed as a one-stop shop solution, and they do streamline processes and ensure consistency. But just know that some are very bare bones, and they're data collection tools with little guidance on the thousands of data points that are needed for CSRD. Most importantly, what we like to highlight is many lack robust carbon calculation tools for environmental metrics. These basic tools would handle small, medium companies, but for an enterprise with thousands of lines of data and the type of audits that you'll have to go through, they're not going to have the tooling you need to get the accurate carbon calculations, but they're great for data collection. So we will give due where that is so that they're able to handle the E, S, and G of the data collection. Next up is consultancy services. So this is quite popular, what we're seeing in this space when we've talked to customers or just in that carbon accountability report, because they provide access to this specialized knowledge that we talked about, and they reduce the internal workload for companies. The downside is they can be incredibly costly, and you're going to create a long-term dependency on external providers. Remember, CSRD as we know it is here to stay, so it's going to be ongoing. So look at that when you think about the long-term costs and benefits of having 100% external solution like a consultancy. The fourth are carbon accountability tools. This is kind of where Normative started with our specialization, or it is. And these solutions focus specifically on calculating and managing emissions data, which is essential for CSRD's climate-related disclosures. They provide accurate emissions calculations and often include other tools like reduction planning capabilities that will make sense and be needed later on in the CSRD reporting. They provide, they may be limited to environmental aspects though, and that is a con, but they excel at what they do. So some people use this as part of a tech stack or part of a solution when reporting for CSRD. Now, finally, there's something that we coined the hybrid approach, which combines internal resources with external tools and expertise. This offers flexibility and can really be tailored to what you as a company needs. However, it needs careful coordination in a way to avoid overlap and inconsistencies. If you have different tooling, like we said, one carbon accounting tool and one consultancy, you need to make sure that they're speaking to each other and that there's no redundancies or gaps, right? Unless, of course, your tool and consultancy are perfectly aligned as they are with the normative hybrid solution. So you'll notice that 2 arrows on this slide highlight normative unique position. We combine the best of both worlds. We're going to have precise carbon accounting tools with an integrated expert consultancy. So you get the accuracy and the automation of a specialized software alongside that strategic guidance needed for successful CSRD compliance, all without the coordination challenges when you have a tech stack with a bunch of different tooling and a consultancy externally and in-house. So with having a chat on different types of solutions, I know that some of you guys said you were already planning. So the poll here that we're going to do is, what type of solution is your organization currently using for CSRD compliance? Or maybe you're not yet using a solution and you're still taking a look. Got a lot of votes coming in. They're all over the board currently. This is really interesting. And like I said, with the hybrid approach, you're going to be using a couple of the different things. So if you're using an ESG platform plus a carbon accounting tool, then you would hit hybrid approach in your answer. So we've got 105 votes. So let's see where we're at. Then give me 1 second. I've got to get the poll back up. Yep. So we've got about 28% not using a solution yet, 23% using in-house resources only. My heart goes out to all you sustainability managers. We know how many data points you're handling, so we're going to get you the resources if you're in-house only. And then a hybrid solution that we spoke about. A couple of people using a carbon accounting tool already, and then external consultancies. I'm actually shocked to see that low on external consultancies. We do find that as the deadline gets nearer, that the number of people looking for solely external consultancies goes up. Okay, so Lat is going to hand over this section to Sapantha, who's going to take you on the actual action plan of taking this complex, big old thing that CSRD is and putting a clear process and action on it.
Thanks, Sarah. So by now, you've likely attended several webinars and gotten some sort of an understanding of what CSRD is and what it entails. But you might find it a bit challenging to kickstart the process. Where do you start? Who should be a part of this? What do you do? So in this part, I'll walk you through a suggestion on how that process could look like and how to structure up your CSRD work. Now, the very first step, if you haven't already done this, is to delve into the CSRD compliance. And this is to familiarize yourself with what is expected of you and your company. And to do so, there are a couple of reading materials you should consider going through. So you can start by reading the ESRS 1, which outlines the general requirements. Here, you'll find details on the double materiality assessment, the necessary value chain information, and how you're supposed to structure your final sustainability statement. Then ESRS 2 goes through the general disclosures that every company needs to include in their sustainability statement. So regardless of what results you've gotten from your double materiality assessment, you will need to report on everything you find in ESRS 2. It's mandatory for all companies. And this really addresses how you prepared your sustainability statement, the role of your administrative body, which are your board of directors and your CEO. And it also goes through strategies and business models related to your sustainability strategies, so how they are connected. Then we also have some guidance materials, and these are released by EFRAG. While they're non-authoritative, they do serve as a practical tool for your CSRD journey. And these include the IG1 materiality assessment. It provides you practical insight on how to do a double materiality assessment. IG2 value chain goes through the details that you need to provide when it comes to your value chain information. And then IG3 is an Excel file that contains all of the ESRS data points, a simplified version of those, which will help you also go through all of the data points. Now, we do realize there's a lot of reading materials and there are a lot of details to keep track of. And having a consultant by your side here would really ease things up. Now, the next step after you've delved into the compliance is to establish your CSRD team. So you could start by appointing a project manager. This person would then lead the entire CSRD work and the processes. So typically this role is filled by a sustainability manager or a CFO, but this person should also be the one that's well versed in the CSRD compliance and read all of the materials if you're not using a consultant to help you out. After the project manager is appointed, you can then consider your existing group functions, and then you can appoint a representative of each department. So the representatives will then partake in the workshop discussions and the double materiality assessment. So for instance, let's say you have HR, you have finance team, you have an IT team at a group level, then you can have a representative from each of these teams that would contribute with valuable insights during the workshops. And these representatives would also be responsible for answering specific data points that's relevant to their departments. So for example, let's say you have data points in S1 related to your own workforce, and answers for these data points are already available within your HR department. So they would then go to your HR rep. Finally, if you have multiple subsidiaries or offices, then also consider appointing a sustainability champion for each of those entities. These champions would be responsible for collecting data from their respective entities, which would then be needed later on in the data collection phase. And then overseeing the entire CSRD process, it's important that you involve your administrative, management, and supervisory bodies. And these are, for example, your CEO, board of directors. They need to be involved and informed throughout your CSRD journey. So after you've delved into your CSRD compliance and you created your CSRD team, the next step is to set up your project plan. So by now, you should have a clear idea of all the elements to include, and then the necessary workshops, for example, but you should also ensure that everything is completed on time. So we do recommend creating a plan that includes all of the elements and an estimated timeline for when that needs to be completed. We've created an example so you can see of a project plan. So when you create your project plan, I suggest you start from the end. So you consider that your ultimate deadline is the publication of your annual report, because that's where all of the CSRD information needs to go in. So you start there and you can work backwards. So before publishing your annual report, you need to construct it. And it needs to be based on 2025 data. So therefore, your data collection for 2025 should probably start towards the end of the current year or the beginning of the new year. You also might want to opt for a trial year using 2024 data. So you want to ensure accuracy. You want to do it more than once. So make sure that's a part of your plan too. And before even collecting the data, you need to go through all of the data points yourself, if you're the project manager, to make sure that you understand what's required, and also to make sure that your champions have the right training to understand the data collection procedures before they can begin. So make sure you've set time for trainings as well. And if you're using a data collection module, then training will also be required there. And ensure your platform selection is finalized before you start with the whole data collection part. And even if before data collection, you will need to do a double materiality assessment that will tell you what data you need to collect. So then in the double materiality assessment, you probably will have to do impacts, risks, and opportunities workshops. You have to do stakeholder engagement. You have to document down your value chain. These things need to also be in your project plan. And since the CEO and the board members are overseeing this process, then some sort of a training for them will also be essential. So make sure that's a part of the project plan as well. And maybe even before training the board and an executive team, as a project manager, you want to probably check what data you have in your inventory to get an idea of, what data and information is already available for data collection, but also your double materiality assessment. So make sure you have all of the elements in there and you set reasonable times to get everything done. And then finally, some practical tips, especially for these small teams preparing for CSRD. First of all, when you establish your project plan, we already mentioned it once, but make sure you have realistic timelines. These things can take quite a long time, setting up workshops, getting things approved by a CEO or a board, going through all of the data points. It's very time-consuming activities, so make sure you have allocated enough time to thoroughly address each aspect. Secondly, you want to engage with your auditor early on in the process. Reach out to them already now. Reach out to them when you start your DMA, for example. Make sure you understand their process to audit things and let them know that you would like to have the DMA reviewed once it's finalized. Don't wait until the end of the timeline for your limited assurance. Already start talking with them about this. And then thirdly, consider hiring a consultant. Sarah already mentioned it, but this can really help you out in the initial year. So given the many details of CSRD, it's easy to overlook crucial aspects. Having that guidance in the first year really ensures that you have correct procedures. It provides you valuable learning experience to handle it independently in the second year. And if you're interested, you feel free to reach out to Normative for assistance here. We do offer CSRD services with consultants to support your journey. And lastly, while some companies do opt for Excel when it comes to data collection, it can be quite challenging and very prone to errors. So we do recommend finding a data collection module for a more efficient and accurate process.
Thank you, Sapanta. It's a wonder to me that you can break down such a crazy CSRD regulation into that simple slide with the steps. But when you were going into it, the DMA, for example, could have its own 3 slides going into detail on exactly what's needed. And if DMA is a new acronym for you, we have a past webinar that we hosted going into depth on the DMA, and that is where you kind of start the CSRD process. So go ahead and take a look at that. But we are going to have a real treat today with our product manager, Vijit, whose brainchild is the CSRD module. So you're going to get a look at that.
Thank you, Sarah. Before I start showing the module, I'd like to highlight that the principles behind which we've built the CSRD module, firstly, is making it really easy for data collection. We know data collection is a massive effort, and delegating this across multiple stakeholders is a gargantuan effort. The second one is bringing transparency. Depending on where in the organization you are, whether you're a project manager leading the CSRD report, or you are someone who's collecting data, it's really hard to manage all the tasks that are involved in completing the CSRD, the entire report. So we've made sure that we've built a lot of transparency. And the final thing is auditability. The CSRD report requires that you send it to auditors. You have enough audit tracking just to make sure that when your auditors ask you any questions, this report not only passes all of their questions, but passes through audits in a very quick and efficient way. So that's the sort of principles that we've used to build the CSRD module, and this is how it looks like. First thing first, to start off with, we don't limit you in the amount of reports that you can create. You can create as many reports as you want. So I'm going to show you how it actually looks like when you're creating a report. I'm going to create one for 2025 with on 2024 data. So we have that. We select one framework here. Depending on the organization, in most cases, you're doing it for your entire organization. So you're going to choose the corporate carbon footprint here. We choose the reporting metrics. So we're going to put some revenue figures and an employee count. What we require as a part of us giving this module is that you do your DMA either with us, with Sapanta, and other CSRD consultants, or you do it with your provider, and the results of that you can input into normative. So currently we support on a topic level, but we want to support this on a subtopic and a subtopic level going forward. For the sake of this demo, I'm going to keep this to just these topics. And once this is done, the access is where you actually delegate a lot of this work. Depending on how big or how small your CSRD reporting project is, you can assign as many people or as little people as you want and give them different kinds of access. Once that is done, as you can see that here a report is created. And this is how the report looks like when you are in it. So you see all the topics that are material to you. You see the topics that are not material. And this is where I mentioned that the transparency aspect comes in. Depending on different parts of your organization, you want all of them to be on the same page so that you don't sort of drag the organization and trying to play catch up with different parts. So this is how the entire module looks like. In case you want to change anything, you can always go into settings and configure this in a slightly different way, even at a later stage. So we always offer some amount of flexibility. Sarah briefly mentioned how we automatically calculate a lot of the information on the carbon calculation side. So because collecting data is a large effort in and of itself. If you choose to collect carbon data with normative, we automatically pre-populate a lot of this information here. This is for E15 and E16 sections, where E15 is primarily on the energy consumption and the energy splits, and E16 are data points in gross scope 1, 2, and 3. So the benefit of all of this being automatically calculated is that it reduces the amount of time that you need to calculate this. And more importantly, these are the areas where you can go wrong and you can be inaccurate. And the last thing that you want is to be pulled out for greenwashing. A few other features that we've baked into the CSRD module. The first thing is materiality of information. Certain data points as per ESRS, you can choose to mark them as non-material, although the topic is material to you. But in this case, what happens is you have to be very clear with your auditor as to why you're marking something as non-material. So one way we do this is by providing you an option within the platform to make it absolutely clear. So for the sake of this demo, I can say that I've already cleared this with my auditor. And once this is done, two things happen. First thing is it gives you a very quick update on who has actually updated this specific data point and the reasoning behind why this data point has been marked as non-material. The reason why we do it in this way is because when you're going through your audits with your auditor can be introduced into the normative platform, and they can go through every single data point by data point without having to miss any of them. This makes sure that the process of auditing is very structured and a lot more clear. The second thing that I'd like to show you in how we've built the normative platform is we've always made sure that the data points that are voluntary or phased in are very clear to you. So in this case, ESRS has already defined what are the data points that are absolutely must when you're doing your report, and some of the ones that you can choose to skip depending on when it applies to you, but also you can choose to skip because it's just voluntary in nature. One way we do this is by, in cases that are voluntary, we very clearly mention on every single data point whether it's voluntary or phased in, and when it is in one of those cases, you can choose to skip it. And the last thing that I'd like to show you is how you can assign data points to people. As I previously mentioned, data collection is the key part of a CSRD report. And in most cases, you won't have one person who's doing it. As Sipanta had mentioned previously, you have multiple people coordinating and collecting data that all contribute to one CSRD report. So in this case, let me assign this data point to me because I am the one who's going to be filling this out. So here you can assign this to one or multiple people. Let me assign this to myself and provide some instructions. So I want this to be completed by the 27th of February. And the moment I assign this, I can easily know that there are instructions for this data point. I can know very quickly, rather, that this data point is assigned to me. And not just this data point being assigned to me at the data point level, but you can see this on the complete report level as well. And once you've done with the data collection effort, one thing that I'd like to show to you here is you can go through the entire report by just approving data points, or then in case you want something to be corrected, you can always request to change the information or edit the information. The reason why we've built this workflow is we usually see that a lot of our customers want to first add all the data in and then go into the editing mode of it. So this covers the entire CSRD reporting functionality that we have. Once the report is done, you can, of course, export this in an editable format that you can then use for your final sustainability statement. I'm sure there are some things that I have not got into the depth of it here. You can always book a call with us and we can give you a personalized demo on some specific features that we have not currently shown yet. But that's it from my side. Sarah?
Perfect. And I would love to reiterate that if you have a Q&A, please use the Q&A function, just because in case we don't get to it today, then we'll be able to follow up to your exact question versus rather if it gets lost in the chat. So thank you, Vijit, for that. It's amazing to see. I always love the bar at the end to see how far you're going, because as you can see, it's a huge disclosure. And it's very easy if you're using a tool like Excel or Microsoft for everything to get lost in the sauce. But the ability to assign people and have a really clear audit trail to provide auditors is really amazing. So it's an amazing product that we've built. And if you're taking a look, please let us know and we'll see how we can help you. And here at Normative, like when you can see carbon, you can report, reduce, and lead to net zero. CSRD compliance is great, but there'll be a step afterwards where you're going to have to show your plans to actually reduce. And that's what we're here at Normative aiming to do in the end goal. And remember that CSRD, like I said, is more than a final report. You're going to need an action plan that ensures you're not just compliant, but confident in your day-to-day and ready for tomorrow's requirements. The bar, the goal line of compliance is going to be moving consistently, and you need a partner with you that can keep up with that and make sure that you are compliant at all the different stages as that evolves and changes. Now, some key takeaways on the actions for CSRD success from our session today before we get into Q&A. It's going to be to start early. Like you said, Sapanta definitely focused on timelines and how much this takes, and there's training. There's so many people involved. So begin preparation now, regardless of timeline changes you may think are coming, to ensure that you have thorough compliance. The second is you need to build a team. You need to establish these cross-functional expertises within your organization with clear roles and responsibilities. The data sets across the E, S, and G are going to be all over your organization. So you need to know who it is that you can tap to get that data. And you're going to want to choose your tools. As we said, you might think that an in-house sustainability manager is enough to do this, but let me tell you, it is a gargantuan task. So you want a great toolbox to help you do this. There was a couple different solutions we spoke about today. See what makes sense for you and your organization setup. You want to collect the data and keep up with timelines. Begin data collection and process implementation. Check in often on those timelines and be really transparent if those need to shift. And you want to look beyond compliance. You're going to use CSRD as an opportunity to drive sustainable business transformation. So this brings us into the Q&A section. Oh, and if you're ready to get started on CSRD, like now you have the basis and the words DMA and you want to look at different solutions, you want to talk to Normative about how we can help you, feel free to book a demo and we would more than be happy to have a chat with you on CSRD and how we can get you started. But that gets us to the Q&A. We only have 5 minutes left, so let's see what we can get to here with our expert panels. So we've got Vijit and Sapanta on the line. And I've already got some great questions I've seen come in the chat. So the first one we want to say is, how how can we ensure that our CEO and board members are involved in overseeing the CSRD process? Sapanta, I think you could shed some light on this one.
Yeah, definitely. So one way to approach it is by having regular presentations on the progress of your CSRD work. And that would really keep your CEO and board updated. You could even implement their insights directly into the work. And I also do recommend documenting down this entire process, since you will at a later stage need to explain how the CEO and board has overseen the double materiality assessment and CSRD work as a whole. So yeah, just keep regular presentations, keep them involved as you do the work.
Perfect, thank you. There was a tech question. So Vijit, this might be for you. Any experience with a sustainability module that's integrated into an ERP system?
We do this on the carbon side, where we take ERP data and then do carbon calculations on them. We already support a lot of our customers on this today. We don't do it the other way around by taking the sustainability module in. The reason why we take ERP data is because the carbon calculations is quite complex, and Normative provides a platform and a solution that is catered towards carbon calculations there. So you can take in your ERP data and feed it into Normative that does your sustainability and specifically carbon calculations. Yes.
And that ties in perfectly to the next question that we might both be able, or both of y'all might be able to take. And it's a really simple one in its essence. How can I ensure that the data I'm gathering is correct?
Shall I take it?
Please.
Yeah, it's a great question, especially since we're looking at a large amount of data points involved. You know, companies are usually looking at between 500 to 700 data points. They're going from 30 to 500 to 700 data points. And then how do you ensure that all of that is accurate? It can be quite challenging. So training is really important here. Whoever that is writing, that you're gathering the data from, they need to be very trained, and it needs to be clear for them what the data is that they need to insert, how they need to collect that data, and etc. And also, I just want to add that after the data is collected, you could also implement some sort of a sample testing method. So you would, for example, select specific data points in randomly chosen subsidiaries or offices, and then double check their inputs. You could ask for documentation that supports the numbers or the inputs that they've added. You can recalculate everything just to make sure that you got the same result, but you can do a sample testing so you don't do it on all of the data points. Yeah, I would leave it to that.
And when you use a solution like Normative, right, at least you know the carbon calculations part that are automatically being fed in, you can trust those. And that was a very high level, can we trust the data, to a very specific question for you, Vijit. Can I export my report in the European single access point format? Yes,
this is something that we're working on right now. ESRS has a very specific standard for a sustainability statement, which is the CSRD. What is CSRD reporting is synonymous with the ESRS sustainability statement. They're the one and the same thing. And the export is compliant with the format that is required by the European securities market. Yes.
Unfortunately, the questions keep flowing in. We are at time. We are going to have to wrap it up. I have got anybody that put your last chance to put them in the Q&A module so we can reach back out specifically. Otherwise, we will be saying goodbye to you today. Please fill out the survey. Thank you so much for spending your Tuesday afternoon with us. If you want to hear more about CSRD and what we can help you with as an organization coming into 2025, reach out at Normative, book a demo. We'd be happy to help you. And we can't wait to see you on the next webinar.